Welcome back to Kin in Line. I make this part 91. We're in the sort of early to mid 80s, I would say. And this is a sketch I did at Cove Rock. It's an impressive outcrop on the coast, about 30 miles west of, 30 kilometers west of East London. So from a distance, we'll see the view shortly, but once you get there, you climb up the side of this outcrop. And I mean, people actually risk their lives because there's little cracks in this thing, sort of a sandstone, I think it is, through which you could fall to your death. They are sort of boarded off, but yeah, look at those fishermen on the edge there. And the people on top show the sort of scale of the thing. This is done on the same occasion from a distance. So I think it's in two parts, really, and the piece shown in the earlier drawing is on the right, and then there's like a gap between them. And here we've got people again in the foreground walking along the beach to get to this place. It's quite remote. You have to hike along the beach for 15 minutes or something. But well worth a visit, Cove Rock. This was where Jack Lugg used to take us on outings back in the day. So I seem to have got into the period after I got divorced in 86 and moved into a flat in central Port Elizabeth. And I used to attend a lot of jazz concerts. This was one of my weaker efforts, actually. Let's see what else crops up. So here I used a sort of a red oil pastel, and then watercolored it later. This one isn't particularly successful, but anyway, this would have been at a jazz concert, maybe just a spectator or something, or a music lover. Here we actually have somebody playing the clarinet, maybe. Yeah. As I say, you can't get that in a photograph. You can get a picture of a clarinet player. It's a pity this isn't, I didn't manage to get the contrasts better, but this is a guy called Tim. That's his surname, T-I-M-M. Trying to remember his first name. He left South Africa for Australia, I think it was. His dad was I know he tuned pianos. I don't know if he did that for a living. But anyway, it was often these concerts happened at the Warmer Gardens Hotel in Warmer, which is subsequently closed down. It did in, I think, the 1990s or early 2000s. It became an educational institution, sort of a real loss. Wonderful venue, characterful old hotel. So yeah, we've got a sax player. So done at some scale here. I think that one also works quite well. And getting that double bass. So this might have been done actually at, well, I'm so close up, I think maybe it was at the Warmer Gardens. I was going to say it might have been at the Feather Market Hall where I attended the Carling Black Label Jazz concerts. Yeah, so here again, I don't think my watercoloring technique entirely works. Partly it does, but yeah, you've got to just give it a go and hope for the best. And this, I do remember, is Errol Cuddenby, who was a great jazz pianist. I did quite a few of him, which we'll see again. I think pencil is probably a better medium than that pale red sort of crayon that I was using there. It certainly gives more definition. And this is a not very successful attempt, I think, to convert one of my quick sketches into a drawing. It just never really works. While we're on sort of life drawing, I've got a whole pack more of my stuff from the imagination. But after I got divorced and I was living in Central, in Lawrence Street next to the Methodist Church, the St. John's Methodist Church, I started walking around this historic part of PE. You know, I hardly knew it existed, although where I worked, obviously on the Herald, that's the oldest building in the Herald complex dates from the early 1900s. And the Herald itself, obviously, from 1845. But so I walked up Barkins Valley a bit and got this view back towards the harbour with those cranes standing out against a sort of evening sunset. That won't be a sunset, sunrise. That's looking east. This is kind of from closer up, overlooking the lower Barkins Valley. In fact, it looks crisper in this on the phone than it does in reality. So Fort Frederick, you can just see a square point up there. That's actually just the end of it, 1799. So that's where the British built their first Eastern Cape fortification, really. And oversaw from there the arrival of the 1820 settlers in this Algoa Bay. You can sort of see the bay beyond the harbour there. Was the perfect place, landing spot for these, I think it was 27 transport ships in 1820. They each took about 4 months to get out here from the UK. And they brought about 4,000 settlers. So the lower Barkins Valley was, the whole town was built up around it and around the harbour, which underwent numerous changes over the next 200 years until it's now there's a lot of container cranes there, and they've of course built a new harbour up the other side of the bay at Kuche. So yeah, this is just the lower Barkins Valley, a little bit roughly done in crayon, but quite like the effect. We'll come back to the rest here later. This is a big sketch pad from the mid-80s, it says here. So we're on the beach again. This is one of my classic pages, and I quite enjoy this person on a horse and couple with a dog. I mean, how these look like they could have been done in East Bonza Bay. That sloping sand dune there, you don't get that in PE really, not in the central beaches, maybe on the outskirts. But yeah, I can't place who these ladies are. A second horse there just suggested. Forgotten about that. It's quite a nice page. So as I said, I was in Lawrence Street in Central, and across the road was the St. John's Methodist Church, where the Reverend George Irvine, I think he later became a bishop or something, but he was a prominent anti-apartheid activist as well. And here I think you've got African people. I don't think this was for Molly Blackburn's funeral, but it could have been in 1985 or early 86, I think. Notice the woman, African woman, carrying a baby on her back. That is so typical of the tradition of Black South Africans. That's how they carry their kids, with a blanket wrapped around. A lovely old church. PE has about 6 of these. I think they call them Victorian Gothic or something. Very beautiful churches, really, stone. So then I did this thing which they actually put on the cover of my autobiography, such as it is, which we called After the Storm and Before the Rainbow. Just trying to get it in focus here. So it's one, we were then in the mid-80s a country divided within itself, one body politic, as it were, with Afghans sort of I've generalized obviously, but here you have the white side, which is all rosy and nice housing. The black side is small housing. Nowadays it's mainly squatter shacks. I read somewhere that there's 70 odd squatter communities in and around PE. It's just too many people earning too little and dependent on the state. So black power, white power, and differing philosophies in the nation's body politic. And the fists say it all, yeah. So that was the aggressive white nationalism, also obviously a simplification and a generalization, and likewise the black power, which is not an aggressive fist, But little did I know that the ANC was using, through the UDF and others, was going to use some serious terror tactics that they learned from the Vietnamese. So nothing was as it appeared, and as a journalist I should have spotted that, but you sort of did the best you could, reporting what was happening. However, so here I did this sort of thing out of the left field, sort of out of my imagination or just spontaneous. But we've got a chap wearing a UDF shirt with the Black Power salute. There's a strange animal behind him. And on his shirt is Apartheid divides, UDF unites. So these were the guys I was reporting on, the UDF. Here I've got a strange, sort of slightly sexual connotation of this chap with his fly undone. I have no idea how that emerged, but he seems to be holding a cell phone or something else, and a weird chap down below here. So this was just the twisted society that we lived in at the time, and these prowling creatures behind. Make of it what you will. Can't believe this paper's so thick. It must be. Okay, so these were the two of the left-wing troublemakers as far as the West was concerned. Comrade Fidel Castro who precipitated the Cuban Missile Crisis in '62, and then Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, one of numerous Palestinian sort of organizations geared at undermining Israel and taking back what they considered their exclusive land. I see Arafat is giving a peace sign, which is a bit odd, given his not very peaceful strategies. Yeah, so these weren't done from the actual people. Okay, then I just had a bit of fun. Hello? And another one. And what's your name? So this could have come out of a Dickens novel, I guess. And having been recently divorced, the mind did tend to wander and wonder. So the idealization of the female form, I think. I quite enjoy the contrast between these very delicate lines and this sort of heavy black that I've kind of painted in there. And here we've got one without the dark. Yeah, taking me to the tricky period in a man's life, where your libido kind of often dictates So she's drying herself after a bath, and nothing too lewd or rude, thankfully. Also, I'm feeling quite embarrassed. It's very thick paper. No, it is a second page. This could be the one that does me. No, safe. Yeah, so here I really went left field again. This guy wielding some sort of club, but again he's also got female features, as it were. And little ghastly thing on the right there, this blazing sun. A river runs through it. So I'm going to have to call it at this because I see I'm well over my normal. But here we got two interesting figures. And I'll leave it at that for now. Cheers.